Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Life's Black Belts. I'm your host, Eric Alders, and I hope you've been enjoying our last 21 or so episodes that we've put out so far since April. And I'm really enjoying getting to meet some very interesting guests from all over the world and picking up listeners from all over the world. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to some previous episodes, please do so. As always, please try to follow us on social media at Life's Black Belts, and also, if you wouldn't mind, leave us a positive review on iTunes or wherever you may listen to the podcast. In addition, the last probably 7 or so episodes, we've been putting the video version up on our YouTube channel as well, so you could check that out. And we appreciate the support. Today, I'm joined by another Life's Black Belt. Really, I've been looking forward to this interview for some time, since we had a chance to meet virtually, first online, and then had a nice phone conversation together. And my guest today is Amberly Lago. And Amberly is not only an author of a best-selling book, it's called True Grit and Grace, and the subtitle of that is Turning Tragedy into Triumph. I don't really want to give too much away about her story because it truly is inspirational. And one of the reasons I bring guests on like Amberly that you're about to meet is I utilize the experience that I have as a martial arts instructor and lifelong martial artist. And I try to utilize that experience and compare the journey that it takes up the ranks in martial arts and compare that to how life is very similar, how we need to have consistent perseverance, that failure is an inevitable part of life. You have to continually overcome your adversity and your mistakes, and how the ability of consistently showing up each day and just trying your best, even when you don't feel 100%, because we all have off days, the consistent pursuit of that is what helps us to excel and to reach new levels. And that's why I like to highlight some of these amazing people that we've had a chance to bring on the show. And without any further ado, I'm really looking forward to getting into this story. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Amberly Lago. How are you, ma'am?
Hey, good morning. I'm so happy to be here with you. Thank you for having me on.
It's my pleasure. And just to give some clarity on the situation right now and the news cycle, you're currently in California. And unfortunately, right around your area, there was just an unfortunate mass shooting at a nightclub in your area. And now you're dealing with a major fire in town as well. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, when I first joined on, I just dropped my daughter off at school, and to see this big, billowing smoke coming up from a fire right behind her school, tried not to show too much of my anxiety and assure her she's safe. And I know she is, and we're really close to the school.
Mm.
I have so many friends that have been evacuated, though. It's a scary time, and I think it's a time where we all need to come together and offer love and support, because it is so needed in the world right now.
Absolutely. It really is. And unfortunately, the world is, or especially the United States, is a bit divided right now. And
It
one
sure
thing
is.
I try to, to pass on to my children and to my students is just trying to be the best citizen possible and love your neighbor. And, you can't control anybody in this world but yourself. So if you please
Exactly.
treat people with a little bit more kindness and understand that you're not going to agree with everyone in the world, but it's okay to agree to disagree and be respectful of each other's opinions. And I guess we can only do that one person at a time.
And that's why it's so awesome. Coaches and mentors like yourself have such an impact on these kids. And so I appreciate all you do.
Well, thank you so much. So I've been following you on social media, and you've had an opportunity to really tell your story, which I would like to get to. But let's do a little background first and let the audience learn a little bit more about you. I know that you're not a native of California. We detect a little bit of that Southern accent with you,
Can you tell?
just a little bit. Hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully I don't sound too Jersey.
Well, it's okay. My husband's from Jersey, so
All
I
right,
like
that's all
that.
right. The,
Yeah.
the accent kicks in the more from North Jersey that you are. I'm a little bit more by the classic Jersey Shore area, with the TV show Made So Famous. That's pretty much where I live, right by the water.
Oh, I have to admit, I did watch that TV show. I'm guilty. I'm guilty.
Okay, so
But
the original they filmed at in Seaside Heights. That's I live in Toms River, which is the town right next door. So Seaside Heights is just right around the corner for where we are, and you actually bump into a lot of the different cast members around town, the ones that live locally at least.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So, but not
Yeah.
not our not our proudest thing, but we have it. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm from Texas originally. I've been out here for 28 years. And
okay.
at one point, I did, when I got to California, I did go to a speech therapist to try to lose my accent, and it didn't work out. So I just decided to keep it. But I grew up in Texas in a small town. My whole family's still there. But I knew from a young age, I knew from the time I was about 8 that I wanted to move to California. And the reason being is I was a dancer. I really think my mom put me in dance classes because it was the girly thing to do. I was such a tomboy.
Mhm.
Had brothers and I have a younger sister, but I loved, I grew up on dirt bikes and playing outside. And my mom is such a Southern belle, and I think it killed her that I wore my brother's hand me down jeans and a white t shirt every day. But, I grew up with tough love. We had to work for anything. We weren't just given anything to work to have dance classes. I was very fortunate that my mom put me in dance classes, and later on, when I wanted to take more, I had to work at the dance studio to help pay for the classes. And my dance teacher was one of my biggest mentors. She didn't just teach me how to dance, she taught me how to run a business. I learned how to be a dance teacher from her, and that carried me through. We used to go to these dance competitions in Dallas, and that's where we met all the famous dancers from LA. And I really looked up to them. And that's also about the time when MTV came out with all those music videos.
Okay.
And I thought, oh my gosh, I want to do that. Like, I can go to LA and be in a music video and actually get paid to dance, get paid to do what I love. And so I thought, I'm going to do whatever I can to save up money, pack up my things as soon as I graduate from high school and move to LA. And so I did whatever I could. I babysat, I was a lifeguard, I taught dance. I worked at a store called the Cookie Jar. I mean, you name it. I scrubbed toilets, whatever I could do to save up money. And I saved up $1,200, packed up my little Suzuki Samurai, and drove cross country to California. Um, didn't make my parents really happy. They wanted me, of course, to go to college. I had a partial scholarship to UCLA, and I kind of gave that up when I got on a scholarship program at the dance center here. It was in North Hollywood. And it really made me think, you really have to do what's in your heart, your passion, and you should follow that, because I know a lot of people try to do things for other people to make other people happy with their careers, whether it's, their parents want them to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever that may be. It was in my heart. I was so passionate about dance. And when you've got so much passion in you to do something, it really fuels your soul to just do whatever you can to make those dreams come true. And my first music video was with MC Hammer.
Get
And
out of
so
here.
that, I'm not kidding, Can't Touch This. You remember that song?
Of course, I remember that song.
Yeah,
You were in the video?
I was like the token white girl. And so,
No way.
yeah, I'm telling you, it was pure luck. It was a cattle call, and I just happened to get lucky enough to book that. And I was in heaven. I was in heaven. And so, yeah, that was my first music video. And then I got to travel the world. I was in Japan 6 times and traveled across the United States dancing and doing what I loved. But it wasn't easy. I had a lot of failures. I had a lot of, no, you're not good enough. Cause, I came from a small town with, I was a good dancer for that studio. But when I got to California, I was not so great. I had a lot of learning to do.
Yeah, it's a different ball game when you're out in
Mhm.
Los Angeles or New York City or any of those metropolitan
Oh my
areas.
goodness. It was a big wake up call, and I was so naive. I was, so naive. And I guess that's a good thing. I remember when I woke up, I stayed in this little crummy hotel in Van Nuys, and it was kind of scary. They had like cigarette burns all over the mattress and graffiti on the wall, and it was all I could afford. And I woke up the next day, and the top, I had a soft top on my convertible Suzuki Samurai, and it was gone. And I thought, what's different about this? And I thought, oh my God, somebody stole the top off my car. So I drove for about a year in a convertible because I couldn't afford to buy a new top. So it'd be raining and I would just put a poncho on and be driving in the rain. So I definitely experienced some rough times. But like I said, that passion just kept fueling the fire to keep going and never give up.
Well, where does that, what do you think connected you to dance? What age did you get involved with it when you were back
Uh,
home?
I was 3 years old,
Okay.
and I started taking ballet and then tap and then jazz. And we had an instructor from LA. His name was Al Gilbert, and he would come to the dance studio and he would give us these tests for tap. And I would be so nervous that I couldn't even speak. We would have to line up, and I will never forget. He asked me the easiest question. To this day, I'll never forget. I think I was 5 years old. And he said, number 32, what is a shuffle? And I said, I couldn't speak. I know it's a front brush followed by a back brush. It's the easiest tap step there is. I could not speak. Fear took over. And I think my dance teacher knew how bad I wanted it and how much I loved dance. And she let me, the next time he came around, I could retake the test. And I studied so hard for it. And I passed it eventually. And then when I got older, it inspired me to help other kids and help them with tap. So I got into a teacher training certification preparation course, and I learned how to be a teacher, and I shadowed her in classes, and that taught me so much. Later in life, that taught me how to work with others when I became a personal trainer. It helped me. It taught me not only, it showed me that I loved working with people, but it also gave me the gift. I didn't know what it was at that young age, but I know what it is now. And it's the gift of being of service. And when you are of service and out of yourself, it is just that gift that keeps giving back. And it makes my heart full. So I love working with people to this day. I've been in the fitness and wellness industry for 22 years. And I had a successful business training clients, and I had 3 trainers that worked for me. And those skills and that mindset that I learned at a young age has carried me through. And I have used that to this day to work with people, whether it's training clients in a gym or in a physical therapy facility that I work at, or it's coaching them online. It's really carried me through to work with people.
Yeah, well, I think when you get into the role as a teacher, obviously you had your passion first as a student, but as a teacher, I find when you have to break things down for a variety of personalities, different skill sets, it causes you to get very creative in how to explain things, really think them through, and how best to explain how it feels and how to do the movement, where maybe 10 people in the room get what you're saying, but there's 3 or 4 people that you just have to say it so many different ways so they get it, that it actually in turn makes you a better performer yourself. So I even tell my instructors that I know that you love taking class, but when you teach, you're actually going to become a better student through the process of this because you really dive deeper into the techniques. Do you find
Yeah,
that
and
the same?
oh, sure. And I think because we all learn in different ways. Some people, you can tell them something and they grasp it. Some things you have to show them. And then sometimes I have to like physically move somebody's body in that position. So we all learn, I wish I learned through osmosis through everything, but I'm more of a visual learner myself. I have to see it and then I can do it.
Right.
And it's interesting. We'll get into what my tragedy was, but when after my accident, I felt so broken, and I thought, who's going to want to work with me? I mean, I trained fitness professionals, bodybuilders that competed on stage. I trained guys that were trying to pass the physical for the CHP physical test. I trained boxers. I held mitts. I was, I helped with Krav Maga. I was really into Krav Maga. And I did that. And I thought, well, my goodness, I used to work for Nike. I was a run leader. I taught people how to pace themselves for running. And now all of a sudden, I'm in a wheelchair. But when I started working with my clients again, when I was able to start working again, to my surprise, I had one of my clients tell me, "You are a much better trainer now." And I said, "Really? Why?" She said, "Well, because you understand my pain more. You understand my limitations more. And now you're able to really work with me in a way that you weren't able to before." So I was grateful for that. And that's why I'm grateful for every injury that I've had, because it helps me better assess what my client is going through and what they can and can't do,
Well,
So
when you're, because I want to definitely pick up that in a second, but I was curious because you talked about growing up and dancing from a young age in Texas in a small town.
Mhm.
Now you're talking about, being at high levels of working with, everything from MC Hammer to professional athletes and everything in between when you get to California. When you make the decision finally to go, do you travel to California for that first time completely on your own?
No, actually, my boyfriend came out here. He
Okay.
drove out here with me. I was going to drive by myself. And then I had another guy say, "Well, I'll drive out there with you." And my boyfriend was like, "Well, no, I'm going to drive out there with
Right. Right.
you."
Of
So
course.
it was like a little road trip we took, but he drove out here with me. And then I was on my own.
How did your parents, I mean, from a father of daughters, you were how old at the time that you left?
I was 18
Okay, so you're
and
you're a young adult still. I imagine, your parents, having some hesitations about sending their baby
oh my
girls
God,
going to a new state, and I'm sure as a mom now you can probably relate to what they may have gone through at that time. Though, were they trying to convince you to stay, or were they trying to support you to pursue your dreams?
oh my gosh, my poor mom, bless her heart. She did not want me to come. And as I was packing my car up, she said, "Why are you taking everything? You're going to be back in 2 weeks." And I said, "No, Mom, I'm moving. I am getting out of here. I'm moving to LA." And I drove by my dad's house to say bye. And my parents were divorced. And the last thing my stepmom said to me was, "I think you're making a big mistake."
Right.
So my parents loved me, but I didn't have a lot of support, like saying, "Go for it. You're gonna make something of yourself. You're gonna do this." They were, I think they were probably a little fearful. It's scary. Here I was going to California on my own. Now that I have, daughters, I would be scared to death. I would go with them to where they were headed, but we didn't have the money to do that. My parents didn't have the money to say, "Here's some money, go stay in a nice place," or we didn't have the money for them to say, "We're going to fly out there. I'm going to get you set up in a nice apartment." I didn't have that. Whatever I had to work for. So when I first moved to LA, in the first 2 weeks, I got 4 jobs. The first job I applied for, I was driving down the street and I saw a sign in the window, "Help wanted." I walk in, it was a little restaurant. I walk in and I hand the owner of the sign, "Hey, I'm here for the job." He said, "Well, no, you can't have that job. It's for a dishwasher. We need a dishwasher." I said, "I can do that." He said, "No, you need to go get something. You're overqualified. I know you can get something better." And so I thought, well, I got to go get something else. So I started back then looking through the yellow pages. We didn't have, what we have
Google.
now with the internet. We didn't have Google. I didn't even have a cell phone back then. And so, I found a dance studio. They said, "Well," I said, "I need a job. Do you need an instructor?" They said, "Well, come in and we'll see what we can do." So I get there and they said, "Well, we've got a class. We want you to teach the next class." And that was like my audition. And don't you know, looking back, I was 18. I was like a baby. I go in to teach this class. It's like no preparation. They threw me into it. And the kids that I was teaching were only a few years younger than me. And boy, did I have to earn their respect, because they thought, who does this girl think she is with her Southern accent coming in here trying to teach us? But you know what? I got the job, and they liked me. Thank God. And they hired me at their other dance studio. So I had a job waitressing, my first waitressing job, and I had another job at another restaurant waitressing, and I worked at 2 different dance studios. And then I went and started interviewing at agents, and I got my first agent. I took photo shoots, and they were getting me out for auditions, and I was doing everything I could. I was working my tail off, and I
You're
was
a
going,
hustler,
you got to
right?
hustle. You
Yeah.
got a shovel in your hand. You can lean on it and pray for a hole, or you can start digging. And I did a lot of praying, but I did a lot of digging. I was going for it. I wanted it so bad. And you know what? I still want it bad. I want it so bad, and I'm working so hard. Now, I've been speaking for a few years, and it takes a lot of hustling for that. I've finally just reached a point where I'm speaking to larger audiences, and just got back from Utah, where I spoke to, it was a little over 1,600 people. And I was scared to death, but I did it. And boy, I was so happy. I'm still riding that wave of joy.
Well, the thing you keep bringing up that I want to just touch on a little bit is that a lot of the things that you've tried, you said that you were afraid, but you did it anyway. And a lot of people that I'll meet and doing what I do is they also have a fear for starting something new. They're afraid they're going to get
Mm-hmm.
hurt. They're afraid they're not physically capable. They're not physically, flexible enough, or whatever excuses they come up with. Fear holds them back, and fear holds a lot of people back from doing whatever their passion or their dream may be. Where
Mm-hmm.
where does you where do you have the ability to have the fear and push through anyway, where some people would throw their hands up in the air and give up because they're too afraid? Where does that strength come from? Is that part of growing up, or what do you relate that to?
I think the a big one of my biggest, well, I have like a whole toolbox that I go through. Like, if this doesn't work, then I'll do this. If this doesn't work, then I'll try this. But if I did not have a really strong connection to God, so I have a lot of faith. And, some people say universe, light, but for me, it's God. And if I didn't have that connection with my higher power, I wouldn't be where I am today. I think it's by God's grace that I am able to even get out of my wheelchair that I was supposed to be confined to for the rest of my life. But when I have fear, look, I have fear of technology. And it wasn't until the past 2 years that I was never even on a computer. I wrote my book. I hand wrote most of my book, and I went back and I went and bought a computer and had to type it up. 2 years ago, I'm going to admit to you, I didn't even know how to attach a photo to an email. I never had that kind of a job. My job was either on the dance floor or the gym floor. So I have been pushed into this world of technology. But if you want to get to that next level, you have to learn how to do stuff. You have to move past those fears. And, I guess what it is too, I'm not afraid of failure because I'm going to fail.
Mm.
And you know what? My biggest lessons I have learned have been through my biggest lessons learned have been through my biggest failures. I have
Absolutely.
learned the most through when I have failed. And so when I'm scared to do something, I just think of, well, I'm either going to succeed at it or I'm going to learn a lesson from it.
Well, I think that the approach is the mindset is what changes us all. Same thing I try to tell everyone. You're going to fail. I expect you to fail, and it's part of the process. I think people resist failure because they think that's negative and that it means that they're no good. But once I think you go into something expecting to fail, but you have to just keep asking yourself, what's your lesson? What are you supposed to learn from each failure? your approach of what you take out of that changes immediately, as opposed to fear of failure. You just, once you accept it, I think it just becomes a normal part of life. And I don't know how you succeed in life without failure. You have to be a very lucky person to avoid failure in life and still make it.
Yeah, you're so right. And I used to tell my clients all the time, I still tell them, do something that scares you every day. Because it's real easy to get in your comfort zone, and that you feel safe, that feels okay. But the magic happens when you jump out of that comfort zone. That's when you start to be the best version of yourself, when you start to go for those dreams. And um, I think I didn't understand a lot of, like, my clients. I would have new clients that would come, like, for example, I'd have new clients that would come into the gym and they would be scared to work out in the gym. And I didn't really understand that. I didn't understand it until I realized, oh my gosh, I am so fearful of working on a computer and clicking that link to join you on this podcast.
Right.
But the more
Something new.
something new.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? You just have to keep trying it and playing around with it till you figure it out. And, it's just doing something new and keep doing it,
Yeah, you're
until you
sticking
feel a
with
little
it.
more
Yeah,
comfortable.
again, I keep going back to try to give you some of the metaphors that I give the students, but I'll tell them that a black belt is just a white belt that never gave up. That's it.
Oh, I
What,
love
what's
that.
what's the, what's the secret? They look at me, or they look at the higher level people, or they look at, I'm sure in your industry, they, a new dancer walks in and they see how graceful that you move, or you have a fitness client and they see what amazing shape that you may be in, and they just want to be there, and they don't necessarily see the work that it takes to get there. They just see the end result, and they want to know, what's the secret, what's the magic meal plan that you're on, who do you call, what do you do, how do they skip past all the hard work? And you tell them the secret is that you don't skip past the hard work. You show up each day, you do the best that you can, you keep an open mind, you ask questions, you check your ego at the door,
Oh
and
yeah, you're
you're
so
willing
right.
willing to learn, be willing to fail. And the perseverance through that, of not giving up even when it gets hard, you have no choice but to improve and get better.
Exactly. And you know what? It's a lot of work. And I had somebody tell me, I had been traveling all over the country. I was all over the place this summer promoting my book and doing book signings. And I had somebody say, oh my gosh, it looks like you're having so much fun. And I thought, I'm glad it looks that way, because it has been so hard. It was so hard. It was quite the hustle. The best part of it was connections that I made when I was actually at the book signing. And I got to meet all these people that I had known through social media, or that had just happened to read my book and they came to talk to me about it. But it's not always what it appears to be
Of
on
course.
on social media. They just say, oh, look, they're doing that, look how'd they get on stage, they got so lucky that they got that job, or wow, she's doing another book signing. Behind the scenes, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of hustle. And for me, it's dealing with a lot of pain. Like right now, as I'm sitting with you, it looks like I'm sitting here, I have my leg propped up on my desk because
Mm.
my foot's on fire. But
Oh,
I just make the best of it. And I think part of it is, you said, to do something, you have to be willing. For me, I had to first be in acceptance, and I had to accept, okay, this is where I am. This is what is going on. I have to accept what it is so I can do whatever I can to make it better, and be willing to do the work to make it better. So despite the fires going on outside my house and the smoke that I can see from the window and my leg being on fire, like feeling like it's on fire, I've decided and made the choice. I choose joy. You know what?
mm.
I'm honored to be here sitting with you. This is an honor. I want to be doing this. I don't want to be stuck in fear and focusing on the fire or my leg being on fire. I want to focus on what I can do right now, and be grateful for where I am right now. I'm
Right.
grateful that I have the opportunity to do this. And I think when you shift your mindset to what is going on that's good in your life, it changes and it shifts it shifts your mindset. So I have to jump back to being grateful a lot.
Gratitude, I think, is the key that a lot of people
Hmm.
lose sight of. And I think when you go through different moments in life, whether it be a loved one that passes away or a tragedy that you have to go through in some way, usually those big moments kind of give you some perspective of what's really important, because we do get caught up in life with drama of, friends and work and all the different things that you deal with in life. It's very easy to get cynical and pessimistic, but a lot of people will complain that their life is awful. But you could very quickly say to someone like that, if there's name 5 or 10 things that you have to be grateful for. I mean, really, if you break it down, especially like, again, using a situation of mine that does not even compare to what we're about to get through with what you went through, but, having a knee surgery and being as physically active as I am and recovering that first couple of weeks and not even be able to stand without being in agonizing pain. I remember thinking at that moment, like, it would be nice just to stand and walk to the bathroom right now.
Yeah.
Whereas there was thousands of times I stood and walked to the bathroom and never thought about it before. Or if you
Yeah.
have a stomach ache or whatever is hurting you at the time, what I learned from that moment is that if I could perform my basic functions of life, if I could see and eat and listen and go to the bathroom and get up every day with as little pain as possible, that I'm blessed, and everything after that's icing on the cake. If my wife and my children are healthy and I have a home and I have a place to rest my head at night, everything else is gravy. And you have to just truly learn, I think that's what you're bringing up. It, whatever drama or tragedy or heartfelt stuff that you're going through, and you feel like, I think we always feel like we're the only ones going through it at that time. You feel alone. That when you're going through those moments, if you take a second and you just stop and think a little bit about how grateful you just have to remain in those moments, about
Mhm.
the fact that you can't change everything. You can't control what's going on. If you're going through financial trouble, you're going through a physical tragedy, you can't control that, but you can control how you respond to it. And I think that's what you're saying, that your mindset is what changes absolutely everything.
Oh, it starts with your mindset for sure. It starts, and yeah, for me, it wasn't even just being able to get up and walk to the bathroom. For me, I was, in a coma. And after I was out of a coma, I had to depend on someone for a long time, for probably a month maybe, to carry my bedpan for me. I couldn't even be upright. And so just
Could we
bodily
take a
functions.
Amberly? Could we take a moment then? Because I think this is a proper time to transition a little bit. You talked about going to California at 18, diving right in and getting jobs, getting work, getting agents, touring the world. Really, you seem like that your dreams were all coming true, and you were living your best life. Can you take me through your story a little bit of why you're talking about having been in a coma, and why your leg is on fire? Can you take me a little bit through what happened?
Yeah, I was coming home from work. I had just trained clients and I had just ran my best mile. I'd ran 11 miles in my best time ever. And it was a holiday weekend, and I was on my Harley driving down, and an SUV apparently didn't see me and they T-boned me. So I was thrown about 30 feet. When I finished sliding down the pavement, I looked down at my leg. My femoral artery was obviously severed, and just, it was like a geyser of blood coming out and completely crumbled into pieces. Thank God, I feel like I had a guardian angel that came over, because right away a guy made a tourniquet on my leg, which really saved my life. And I was taken to the hospital. When last thing I remember, I heard the hospital room was full. It was just full of cops, because of, my husband being a first responder. The brotherhood of the police force, news travels fast. And so they had a lot of cops there. And I heard this crying, and it was my husband. I'd never seen him cry before. And that worried me, because I thought, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? Is he going to be able to pull it together? Like, all these thoughts were going through my head. So I told him, I said, honey, come get over here now. I yelled it across the room. I said, I need you to hold my hand. I need you to be strong for me. And really, in my mind, I needed to know whatever was going to happen, that he was going to be okay. He was going to be able to take care of our girls. And that's the last thing I remember before they put me in induced coma. Now, when I woke up, the first thing I learned was they were going to amputate my leg. It took days. I was in the hospital 107 days the first time, and I've had over 1,000 hours of PT or physical therapy. But that was actually the easy part. After all of that, I was diagnosed with a nerve disease called complex regional pain syndrome, which there's no known cure for. I went into a doctor's office, and I was so proud to be upright on crutches because I had been bedridden. I went from being an athlete to I was stuck in a hospital bed with bed sores. So I was finally upright, and I go into this doctor's office, and he looks at me, and he examines me, and he says, "Hey, Amberly, are you the kind of person that likes to push through pain?" I said, "Well, yes, sir, I am." He said, "Well, you need to stop. You need to stop right now. You've got something really serious. You've got something called CRPS. You are going to be permanently disabled. You need to get back in that wheelchair. Your life is never going to be the same. You'll probably have to wear orthopedic shoes." And I was like, "Orthopedic shoes? I am not wearing orthopedic shoes." And I was like, actually, I pretty much stopped listening after the word never. But I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Like I thought, I've worked so hard and I survived this, only to be diagnosed with a nerve disease that leaves me in constant chronic pain. This is going to be for the rest of my life. And by the way, this nerve disease is dubbed the suicide disease because it's so painful, ranked highest on the pain scale, that people decide to end their lives because they're going to live in this constant pain. So I left his office and I went straight to physical therapy. And I told the physical therapist, he goes, "You don't have an appointment today. Why are you here?" I said, "You know what? I just learned something. I've got to work harder than I've ever worked before. I've got to get better." And from that day on, I vowed to work as hard as I could to live the best life possible I can despite my circumstances. I've tried everything you can imagine for pain. I've tried spinal stimulators. I've tried Eastern Western medicine, spinal blocks, radio frequency. I at one time was taking 73 homeopathic pills that they said that would cure me of my pain. Nothing was working. Nothing was working. I hit rock bottom. And when I say rock bottom, I'm telling you, I was broken mentally, spiritually, physically. I was broken in every way. I was completely isolating. I was giving up, although I don't think I would ever contemplate taking my own life. I was having thoughts of, my husband deserves better. He could find another wife. My kids deserve a better mom. He'll remarry. I was having those thoughts. Oh. And there was just this little light left in me that said, I need help. I was, went from being this athlete and this successful person and a good mom and wife to, I started drinking for my pain. And I thought, what happened to me? Why I survived all this to now I was slowly killing myself with alcohol. And it took me down to my knees. And let me tell you, that's the best place to start, because that's where you start praying. And I started asking for help. And I thought, you know what? I can keep going down this road of despair, or I can do all I can to grasp on to hope and gratitude and faith and climb out of this. And so that's what I started doing. And now my passion and my purpose is to share the tools that I've used and the light and the hope that I was given. So if no matter what you're going through, if it's whether it's a hard time or a breakup or that job that you just, you're not happy with, or it's whether you don't feel like working out in the morning, I'm here to tell you there is a way, and you can do something every single day to make your life better and to climb out of whatever you're in is not necessarily your final destination. There is something better. And so I just want to share my message of hope that if I can get through 34 surgeries and I can live in this chronic pain every single day and be here with you right now sharing this message, if I can write a book without a college education, let me tell you, anything's possible. You can do it. you know, it's pretty crazy. I had to, that was a big fear of mine. Who's going to read my book? How am I going to write a book when I don't have a college education? I had a big, I thought I'm not smart enough. I can't do it. And I just did it anyway. I did little steps, baby steps every day. And some days it wasn't just one day at a time. It was 1 second at a time. When I first learned to walk again, before I did that, I had to learn to even stand up. I could only stand up for 3 seconds at a time. So I would time myself and I would stand up. Okay, now I'm going to stand up for 5 seconds. Then I'd get back in bed and lift up my leg. Then I'd stand up for 10 seconds. So it was seconds at a time.
You are such a strong person. I mean, just listening to the story, I'm in just awe because you throw numbers out like 34 surgeries, and it's a number that's hard to even comprehend. I can't imagine as a family what it must have been like for your husband and for your girls to see you in pain, because even from their perspective, you see someone in pain, you really can't do anything to help. All you can do is support them, and there's moments where they probably had their own struggles of feeling helpless, and then they couldn't do more for you. And then you're talking about on your side as a mother feeling like you're not able to contribute to them. So not only are you dealing with the physical trauma that you have to go through, but you're dealing with all these emotions as well. And the fact that you said that it broke you down, I mean, how could it not? How could it not break you down? And you jumped into alcohol. And was there a moment that? And I know you said you prayed, but was there a moment that stands out to you where from that it just changed? Was it needing to be there for your girls and to show them how strong you are, and what was it that was the motivation? Was it just a passion for life, or can you talk to me about that a little bit?
I thank God I have my family. I thought, this is not the life that I want. And I want to set an example for my daughters. I want to set an example of strength and not of victimhood. I thinking about it takes me back to that time.
I can imagine.
But I want to set an example for my daughters that no matter what, that they can accept themselves. It was a lot to work through because I felt like I said, I didn't just feel broken. I was broken. It wasn't just my leg, it was my spirit. And I think
that's the worst. Important. That's the hard part, I think, is that physical pain sometimes is awful. I can't even comprehend how bad your physical pain must have been.
Yeah.
But I, for me and for a lot of people, the emotional pain is invisible to a lot of people.
You can't see that.
You can't see it, and you walk around and people might see you putting on a good face, but they don't really always know what's going on beneath the surface. I mean, it's incredible that there's some people that go through a fraction of what you go through and feel like that there's no hope. And here you are talking about something that most people, I hope, never have to experience. And you took a tragedy and started to turn it around. And what a great role model you are for your girls to show them that
Thank
you
you.
don't give up. You don't throw your hands up in the air. And I would imagine for you as well, because your career was based on as well fitness, and it was
My
being on
livelihood was it.
TV. It was being talented. It was looking good. It was the whole package that you had out there. And you could have had a moment right there where maybe you thought about it, where you felt like you lost your entire identity and you had to reinvent
That's what
yourself.
it was. I had to reinvent myself. And there was one time in the hospital and I was watching TV. I was late at night. I was by myself. And here they had an infomercial on how to get that Brazilian butt. And I thought, oh my God, I'm never going to have a Brazilian butt. And I thought it hit me. I was like, I won't ever be hired to do those fitness videos again. I had just done a fitness video the day before my accident. So you're right. My whole identity, my whole livelihood, my whole entire life was using my body. I worked hard, trained other people, taught people how to run, danced on stage, danced as in fitness videos. And now all of a sudden, what was I going to do? So I think everything that I went through as a kid prepared me for this accident. And I think all the struggles that we go through prepare us for future struggles or what we're destined to be. I didn't have an easy childhood. I was sexually abused by my stepfather,
Oh.
but that taught me that I was going to have to get through that. When I didn't tell anybody, I held on to that shame for a long time, and it wasn't okay to cry. It wasn't okay to be vulnerable. And it wasn't until my accident really that I learned that vulnerability actually is strength, because when you share your story and you make connections and you build a community of people, that builds strength. I was so stubborn. I had to do everything on my own. My motto was cowgirl up, and I had a PhD in suck it up. Being from Texas, I was all about grit. But guess what? Grit only gets you so far. And so that's why I call my book Grit and Grace, because I had to learn to ask for help. First of all, when I needed help, to ask for it and accept it. And so it has been a whole learning process. I hated my leg. I hated my leg. After they did all these surgeries to save it, one day I was at the kitchen table and I looked down at my leg and I said, I hate my leg. I just wish they would just cut it off, because it gave me so much pain and it's so deformed and I'm scarred up from the hip down. My husband said, I can't believe you just said that. You are so lucky you have both your legs. And it was like a slap in the face. I am fortunate that I have both my legs. And it wasn't until I went into a doctor's office and he put my leg on his lap and he looked at it like it was his masterpiece. He saved it. And I thought, my gosh, if he can look at it like that, and look at it like he loves it, maybe I can learn to do that. So sometimes I think that it takes other people to kind of help shift our perspective. And I slowly, that was a big turnaround for me. And I started to love my leg again. And now I'm not embarrassed of it. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of these scars. I had somebody approach me the other day and say, hey, we've got a reality show. We do tattoos to cover up scars. I said, you know what? It's taken me a long time to like these scars, and I just now started to love them. So I think I'm going to keep them like they are for now. But, I'm all about showing people. I show my scars. The reason I show people is so that they see it and they know they'll heal whatever they may be going through, so they know they can get through it. I was so embarrassed that I had this nerve disease. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want anybody to know that I had it. I didn't want anybody to know that something was wrong with me, because again, vulnerability to me meant weakness, and it meant I was broken. But vulnerability just means that, man, I'm human. I am human and I'm doing my best to heal every day. And so I talk about CRPS because when I first was diagnosed with it, I couldn't find anything. When you look it up, when you Google CRPS and you see it's dubbed the suicide disease, I was left hopeless, and I thought, this is not my life. I don't want to have that. So I was in denial about it, and I didn't take medicine for it. I denied it, and I ended up in the hospital because not taking care of the situation, not accepting where you are. How can you do something to get better? If you are in acceptance, you can take that first step. Just like, you know what, just like it was when I thought, oh my God, I think I'm drinking too much. I had to admit that to myself, because how can I stop it if I'm not being real about it? You got to get real. And man, honesty's hard. When you are truly being honest with yourself, it's hard. You got to take a look in the mirror at yourself and go, oh my God, what am I doing? I got to change this. And change is scary. But if you want to get better, that's the first thing you got to do.
I think being vulnerable is scary to a lot of people. You have the ability to proudly display your physical scars. Some people's scars are internal, and some people have you had both. Some people have the fear of showing that as well. And I think that we're afraid that people are going to judge us and think that, like you mentioned, that you're weak and you're not capable, or you're complaining or whining about what's going on in your life. And I do the opposite. I have obviously a role that I play here where my students look at me as a very strong figurehead. You're the master of the school, and you're, physically in shape, and, you have all this skill set. But we've had multiple events. We do a lot of charitable work, and we have like anniversary dinners. And I've stood in front of that group of people, looking out at everyone, being so grateful, because this was a lifelong dream of mine to open up a martial arts school. And when you look out in the audience in those moments, when you see that all these people are there because of something that you created, I've literally, in front of my parents and my students, cried multiple times. And I'll always apologize. And then a lot of the moms and dads will come up to me afterwards and say, thank you. Thank you for showing our kids that you can be extremely strong and confident on one end, but it's also okay because of the being a man, especially men sometimes have difficulty being vulnerable in front of so many people. And it's, I was always raised, to be very, sensitive to others, which is maybe what helps me to be a teacher. But I think putting that vulnerability out there and showing people that I'm a real person, because they look at you and if you're just a karate instructor, you're like this like created figurehead. You're not a real person. Like my kids think, if they see me in public and I'm not wearing jeans, if I am wearing jeans and a t-shirt and a baseball cap, they're like, you have jeans and I don't walk around in a karate uniform all the time, guys,
Yeah.
But they need to see your humanity. And a couple years ago, I guess it's coming up on about 4 years ago, my wife, Tiffany, has very bad asthma. And I don't want to go into the whole story because I will also break down, but she had a massive asthma attack in the middle of the night a few years back. And it went very quickly from grab my inhaler to get my nebulizer to call 911. And that was a matter of minutes. And everything went so quickly because right in the bathroom floor waiting for people to arrive, she turned blue on the spot. She fell back, looked dead in the eyes of the ceiling, and I had to begin CPR on her as the medics started running up the stairs. And all I could think of when they pushed me out of the way and they jumped on her and they're yelling how old is she and how much does she weigh and all this other stuff. They try to yell at you to talk to the doctor over the phone and figure out what to inject her with. It was right outside of my daughter's bedroom. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and all I could think of is standing in front of my girl's room so that they didn't walk out into the middle of this and see their mom in this situation and, intubating her on the spot and not knowing if she's going to live or die when they take her out and following her. And thankfully she survived. And, I can go deeper in the story, but I don't really, this is more about you right now, but I bring this up because a week to the day that occurred, it was a week before this big anniversary dinner that we have. And I had a few hundred people coming to this event for our school. And, I got to that event where a week earlier, my wife literally died. They told me that she did, her heart stopped and they revived her. So she died for a moment. They brought her back. And here I was a week later, not knowing if, a week ago if she was going to live or not. And she was healthy enough at that point to have been out of the hospital for a day, or she was there for 3 or 4 days. And she, was not in the best shape, but she showed up to the event. And there was a moment where we were able to have like a dance. And
Oh,
I knew like all eyes were on us because everyone knew what happened and they were shocked to see her. So of course, in front of like absolutely everyone, they clear the floor, we slow dance, and I just dropped my head and just hysterically cried.
you're
It
going to make me
was,
cry right now.
it
Oh,
was, it
it's so
was, it
beautiful.
was joy. It was terror. It was flashing by. It was being absolutely, totally grateful to just have her
Yeah.
present with me.
Yeah.
No matter what fights you have, no matter what drama you have, I could imagine the same for your husband. When he saw you
Yeah.
go through this and you're sitting there talking about your struggles or not wanting to make it by anymore, man, I could imagine if he loves you as much as I love my wife, that the fact that he gets to wake up and see your face and to still
Oh,
have you there with his daughters has got to be just such a blessing that there's no other excuse to not appreciate life. So it's not like I could relate completely to what you went through, but again, not having the fear to show these vulnerabilities to other people and let them know that you are human and that they could learn from these experiences.
yeah.
I'm really appreciative that you're out there and you're sharing that. So sorry I went off track a little bit with my own story, but I relate to that vulnerability and putting yourself out there and dealing with a little bit of a tragedy.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing that. That got me all emotional. um, humor has really helped us. And I think being in the hospital so many times, thank God my husband he cracks me up and has a little bit of a dark sense of humor. I remember we were in the hospital once and I was having an ankle surgery. They were having to slowly piece my leg back together and wait for the bones to grow back and all that. So I was in there and he looked at the doctor and they put the X on my ankle and he goes, "Okay, doc, is there any way she could die from this surgery?" And the doctor looked at him so worried and he said, "Well, I just upped her life insurance. I'm just checking." And I was like, he's kidding, I hope.
I
But
hope. I hope.
yeah, I hope. But he makes jokes that make me laugh and make the situation a little lighter,
Right.
because it's some pretty heavy stuff. And I'm grateful he has stuck by my side through this whole situation, because it got to the point where, like, there was one time I was passing a kidney stone, and whole other story, but it was the first time I was really scared because I went septic. And he had to go pick up our daughter. So I said, "Honey, you got to take me I started kind of going into shock and convulsion. So I was like, "I can't drive to the doctor. You're going to have to take me to he drove me to the hospital." So he gets to the hospital and he drops me off and he goes to pick up Ruby. And I call him and I said, "Well, they're admitting me." He goes, "Oh, dang it. What? Again? They're admitting you again?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess I got to take me to ICU. I'm septic." And it's just like things that would be like a big, big deal for a lot of people. It's like, "Okay,
Here we
once
go again.
again, here we go again." I was like, "Well, can you bring my iPad or something?" And then I was there for 3 days, but it's like, God, he is stuck by my side through so much. He was at the hospital. My youngest daughter was only 2 when this was going on.
Mm.
And it has taught her. She got an award at school for having the most passion and empathy. And that couldn't make me prouder, because she's got a loving heart and she cares so much about others. And I'm so glad that I hope, I don't know, I hope I've instilled that in her. My oldest daughter is going to medical school, and I asked her, "Well, what made you decide to go to medical school?" And she said, "You did, Mom, all those surgeries you went through." And she is studying medicine. And I go to her apartment and she's got a big whiteboard with all this stuff on it, where she's like, she wants to figure out how to cure CRPS. And
Oh,
so our actions, things that happen to us, life situations, circumstances, yeah, we can't control what life throws our way, but we can control how we react to it, and we can control the examples that we set for our children and for others. And so I do want to share a message of hope for others. And it is hard sometimes. I've heard that when you cry about something that you're not completely healed from it. But I don't know if I necessarily believe that. I feel like I will just continue to heal in different layers. I don't know if you ever completely heal from something. You always carry that with you. But it is how we look forward and move ahead that counts.
Absolutely. I think everything you said, I couldn't agree with you more. And it seems like, again, from tragedy comes all of these amazing events where you have the sympathetic, empathetic, daughter that is so considerate. You have a daughter that's now inspired to go to medical school. If this didn't happen to you, maybe that wouldn't have, maybe this was something that had to happen to you in order to create all these different opportunities, or your ability to speak and write a book. Hindsight being 2020, you could look back and go, as scary as it sounds, that accident might have been one of the best things that could have happened to you. And that might be a very hard thing to say because it comes with all your emotional and physical pain that you have to deal with. But often people, when they're going through these tragedies, they ask the wrong question. It's, why is me? Why me? Why does this stuff keep happening to me? Instead of just saying, what's my lesson here? What am I
I
supposed
just
to
say, what's next?
what am I supposed to learn? What's next? How do I get to
What's
the next
next?
thing?
Yep.
Well, let me ask you, what's next? You pulled yourself, you crawled yourself out of rock bottom. You're at a low point in your life. You're writing a book by hand. Like, are you just feeling so inspired to share your story that, again, not being college educated, you decided that you wanted to write a book. Where does that come from? You just decided one day to do it? Did someone recommend, hey, you should share your story?
Well, yeah, I kept having people say, well, it started out, I'd have people come up and say, can you call my aunt or can you call my friend? They really need, could you uplift them? They're going through some stuff. Can you talk to them? So I was making phone calls, talking to people. Then I got asked to speak in front of a group and then to share my story. Then I was asked to speak at other groups. And so I just started doing more speaking. And I had somebody say, you should really write a book because you could reach more people that way. And so I always think when you don't know how to do something, go to somebody who's done it, or go and I'm not afraid to ask questions. A lot of people, I think, sometimes are worried of looking like they're not smart or looking like they're the underdog because they don't know how to do something. I always root for the underdog. I'm like, everybody starts at the bottom. You always have to start somewhere. And so I went and took a class from Jack Grapes, and it was one of the scariest things that I've ever done to learn how to write a book. I had an editor. I went to a conference, and this is what is I'm so grateful. So a little over 2 years ago, I had a friend call me and say, hey, I'm going to this conference. It's called Author 101. And they teach you, all that you need to know about writing a book and publishing a book. If you pay $100, I can take you. We'll split the cost of the ticket. And I thought, $100, how much am I going to learn for $100 at a 3-day course? Like, how good is this event? That's what I was questioning. I learned so much at this event. And as I was sitting in the audience, I thought, I want to do that. I want to write a book, but I want to be, how do I get that? How do I get on stage and do that? That's what I want. So I continued for the past couple of years to work every day, every single day. I was just asked a couple of weeks ago to go speak at that Author 101 convention in Orlando. I'm going to be featured as their success story. That is a blessing, and I don't take it lightly. I'm so grateful. I'm not telling y'all that to say, oh, look at me. I'm telling you that. So if you're out there doubting that you can't do something, take it from me. I was and still am in a lot of ways the underdog, and I'm rooting for you because if I can do it, you can do it.
Wow. I mean, a lot of people do have a fear of trying something new like that. And this kind of similar story of me wanting to get involved with a podcast, having no idea what I'm doing and just
And you're
saying,
doing it.
yeah, and just saying, you know what, listen, I speak to my students. I do public speaking in the schools. I've never been on stages like you are, but a lot of people come to you and say, hey, you're really good at this. You need to get in front of more people. And this was for me, I guess the least scary way to try to get out there and do it. But then I start to think, how to get out on stage one day and talk to people. And it's like, usually that ego comes in, you're like, well, you don't know how to do that. So don't even bother looking into it. So it's nice to even hear for myself how you could have absolutely no idea what you're doing and just start learning.
I still don't know what
the
I'm
right
doing.
People, but yeah.
I still don't know what I'm doing.
Well,
I'm just inspiring. Going for it.
Well, how has the book been received? I mean, I know that you have the book on Amazon. A lot of people do that, but it's also in Barnes and Noble, and you've gotten some really good recognition from that. I know that you were even, featured on the Megyn Kelly, NBC show as well. So I would imagine only 2 years ago you decide to come out with the book, and all of a sudden you're everywhere. So take me through
NBC calling you saying they're going to fly you to New York.
I was thinking the fear from writing your book to not even having the computer to typing up your book to what the next 2 years after releasing that is like. So take me from that point of, releasing it and forward, because I would imagine it's also a vulnerability when it's out there. And now people could see it and judge you. So I would imagine there's an excitement, but probably also a little bit of a hesitation and fear as well.
Oh, yeah. I have poured my heart and soul and life story into this book, and talk about vulnerability. It's like all my deepest, darkest secrets in this book. And I remember I was at, my daughter rides horses, and I was at the barn, and one of the moms said, so when is your book coming out? And I said, well, it should be on Amazon any day, and then it should be in bookstores soon. And I said, wouldn't it be funny if I looked on Amazon and it was there already? Go to Amazon. I'm like, oh my God, it's out. My book is on Amazon. And I flipped out. I was like, oh my gosh. And I had a moment of like extreme joy and excitement. And then I had that moment of, oh, I am so going to be judged by all those PTA moms that read this book. It's like, it's like putting yourself in that position of, oh my gosh, people are just going to know. And then I thought, you know what? Once you accept your imperfections and your vulnerability, people are going to judge you for it. And they're either going to love you for it, or they're not going to like you. Either way, you're going to be more comfortable in your own skin. So it's all about just embracing who you are and where you are. And I remember I got a call from NBC, and I love Megyn Kelly. I know she's been in the news a lot lately, and it makes me sad that they just dropped her show. But I got a call from NBC. They're like, Megyn Kelly wants to interview you on the Today Show. I couldn't even speak. I was like, Meg. And I'm thinking, they're thinking like, oh my God, she can't even talk. I don't know if we want to have her on the show, but that was exciting. I had asked them beforehand. A producer called, and I said, well, can you tell me like some of the questions they're going to be asking? And she said, nope, this is news. You need to go in with your ears open and just answer the questions that Megyn Kelly asked you. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And the whole plane ride to New York, they had my whole family come out. So we were my oldest daughter couldn't, she was taking exams, but they had my husband, my daughter, and I come. They were on the plane, and I was sitting in the middle of them, and I had my husband sleeping on one side and my daughter sleeping on the other side. Their heads were here, and I was just in the middle. I think my eyes were bug-eyed the whole flight. So I was like, I am going to be on national TV, and I have no idea what they're going to ask me,
Wow.
But I just did it. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. It was incredible.
It must have been incredible. And I would imagine to get your message out there and to let people know more about your book, I could imagine from that point forward, you probably got a lot more attention. Is that right?
Well, that night I was in my hotel room. It was 8 o'clock at night, and the publisher called me from his cell phone, and he said, "We've never had numbers like this for one of our books." He said, "You're a bestseller in three categories." And I looked on Amazon, and I have to tell you a funny story. So one of my favorite authors is Brene Brown. And like I told you, I had no idea what I'm doing. I'm trying to promote my book and, you know, do the right post on Instagram and make sure, okay, what am I going to do? And I looked at Brene Brown. And I was like, oh, honey, look, this is how she promoted hers. She took a picture of her book and she did this. I said, I'll just do that. My husband said, don't you think Brene Brown is going to be upset when she sees that you're kind of doing the similar thing to her? And I said, honey, Brene Brown is never going to know who I am. So the first day my book publishes, I look. Number one in self-development is Dr. Wayne Dyer. Number two is Brene Brown. Number three, Amberly Lago, True Grit and Grace.
That's amazing.
I took a screenshot of it. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. And so I thought, how does somebody like me get to have a book that's like that? And you know what it was? I just did a little bit every day. I just did it. Whatever I could do, I did what was in front of me every day. And I showed up. And you know what? Anybody out there who's wanting to write a book, just start writing every single day. Just write every day, no matter what. And for me, I had to write it like, that's why I think I wrote it. I hand wrote it. It flows differently. It's like I could really, and it's people that have read my book said, you know, I hear your voice. It's really like you're telling a story in the book. And I just recently had two people reach out and say, oh my God, I read your whole book in a day, because I'm not a good reader. I get very like sidetracked. And so I made my book short chapters with little cliffhangers. So it's easy to get through, because I know I don't have a lot of time to read. And so I wanted to make it as easy as possible.
Wow. I'm so like taken back by where you were and where you've gotten to. And I feel like you're also experiencing that yourself, like having sat in that audience at your author event saying you're going to be on stage, to getting on stage, to, you know, having the dream that one day this author may not even know who you are, to being right underneath her on a bestseller list.
That's crazy.
You must at
It's
moments
crazy.
like take a step back and be like, is this even a reality? You know what I mean?
You know what? Just sitting here talking with you, I don't really even think of it. And then when I'm talking to you, I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, that's pretty cool. But I did, however, when I got off the stage in Utah and I got to speak in front of over 1,600 people, now I did go, oh, it was surreal. I still want to pinch myself. Did that happen? Was I really backstage with all my favorite speakers? And they gave me an opportunity, because I was the underdog for sure. Nobody knows who I am. And they gave me a chance to get on stage. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity. You know, I just stay in a place of gratitude. And like you said earlier, check my ego at the door, because that will get you nowhere.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, your ego sometimes fluffs you up and lets you know, or lets you think that you're the greatest thing in the world, but your ego will also at the same time make you think you're the absolute worst person in the world, and that you don't even deserve the successes that you're receiving. It's a tough thing to battle, these inner voices that we deal with in our head sometimes.
Yeah, it sure is.
I'm sure you hear it a lot. I have not had a chance to read your book. I've only had a chance to speak to you right now, but I'm so thankful that you've had an opportunity to really take the experience that you've been through from your past, and this horrible accident that you went through, and the pain that you went through, and that you didn't give up. In those moments that you look back to, that's really hard for you to talk about, when you were at your rock bottom and you thought about not doing it anymore and giving up. I just want you to know, if you haven't heard it enough, that I'm so appreciative, and I'm sure there's so many people that are appreciative that in that moment you pushed through,
Thank
because
you.
you pushed through, and I know you have that connection with God as well. You pushed through because you have a mission that's not just about you. It starts with you. It had to start with you and your husband and your daughters, and your unit together had to get through this as a family.
Mm-hmm.
But you had to get through this because there's thousands of people, if not millions of people, that you have and still need to influence, because there's people that need to hear that someone can go through something like this and be knocked down over and over and over again and be in pain and still push through and still have a good spirit and still be able to influence and still admit that even through all those successes that they're still afraid and they're still nervous and they're
Mm-hmm.
still vulnerable, and to not go to the other end and be like, oh, look at me, I'm on TV and I'm an author now and I'm a public speaker, and not letting your ego run with you. You seem like you've been able to stay very humble through this and very aware. You found a balance, it seems like, between understanding the events that you've gone through and what your mission is right now. And it's almost seems to have gotten to a point where it's out of your control. Even it's almost like it's taken a life of its own, that you, maybe the passion is not just who you are, but also it's something that you probably feel inside that you have to do. You have to give back. Is that something that you're feeling, that this feels like almost like this is like your new mission in life, is to just get this message out there and help people?
I've always loved working with people from, like I said, from a young age, from the time I was 13 and started teaching kids. And I love that connection. I love when I see that spark in someone's soul. I love when I can say or do something that sparks that. To me, that is a gift, to be able to be of service to others. I feel like when you have a passion and you use that passion and that purpose to serve others, that's when it becomes a service to others, when you use that passion and purpose. And that's what fills my heart with joy, is just working with others. And that's so fulfilling when you can see, or the best part for me is when I've had people that have either said they are not going to give up because of me, or they're going to go to the gym because of something that I've said that has inspired them, or a girl that said that a doctor told her she would never dance again and she went to her first dance class, or a girl who walked in shame because she was sexually abused and now she has the courage she talked to me and shared with that experience with me, and she said she feels lighter. Or a girl that had a double mastectomy and was embarrassed of her scars, and now because she saw my scars, she is talking about embracing her scars, and she is an advocate for others who have now had double mastectomies. So it's the ripple effect, and if you can be a part of that, if I can contribute in any way, it fills my heart with joy. So, I feel like that is my purpose, is to be of service to others going through any kind of hardship, whether it's emotional or physical pain or emotional scars that you can or can't see. That's what my purpose is.
Man, I'm just so taken back by the ability for you to connect so well with people and utilizing your experiences. I think that goes back to you as a dance teacher and as an aerobics, and fitness instructor, to now being almost on the coaching platform. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you've taken some of those past experiences and you've relearned how to utilize your best skills to continue doing what you've always loved. It's just maybe in a different format, in a different venue right now. But it's because of those experiences that I think that you're able to connect with so many people. And what your story shows is that what one person can do, what one person's contribution to the world can be. A lot of people think, well, what am I going to do? I'm just one person. Well, you're one person that's been able to influence many people, and I guarantee is going to influence many, many more.
Oh,
And
thank
I
you.
think that it's something that you have to continue that passion, even in those days. I'm sure you still have moments where you question, it's got to be exhausting being in pain constantly. I can't imagine it. It's got to be tough, but to get up every day and to keep that spirit is truly inspirational. I just am very appreciative for you being able to come on and share briefly a little bit of the story, and at least hopefully, I hope that people can hear this and really spark their interest to getting your book and to learning more about you and your story in full detail, because that's really the venue that's needed to really get the full comprehension of your full story. So I was wondering if you had to leave our conversation with one bit of advice or a quote or anything along those lines that you would like to wrap up the conversation with before we go through some of the links where people could find you. What's something that you would like to leave everyone with?
I think that, no matter what your circumstances are, even if your circumstances have narrowed your possibilities, you can choose and you can have a life of joy and happiness. You can have the life that you've always imagined. You have a choice, and we have to choose wisely. But I think leaving people with grit plus grace equals resilience,
Mhm.
because resilience has the one thing that has had the most impact in my life is my ability to strengthen my resilience. And we all have it. We all have that. So it's just claiming it. So, just claim your resilience, do something every day to strengthen it.
I love it. So we could find True Grit and Grace, Turning Tragedy into Triumph on Amazon and Barnes and
Mhm.
Noble as well. If people would like to learn more about you and follow you online, whether it's your website or social media, and I'll leave this in the show notes as well, what are some of the best places people could find more information about you?
I'd love for people to connect with me. You can find me at amberlylago.com. And on social media, I usually post something every day, a little inspirational dose of inspiration. At Amberly Lago Motivation is on Instagram, Amberly Lago at Twitter, and Amberly Lago Speaker on Facebook.
Fabulous. Well, Amberly, I know that you have probably a very busy schedule, a lot going on. Plus, you're a mom on top of that, which is a full-time job, as I'm aware of, as a dad of twin girls. I really appreciate you taking out the time to speak with me. It's an honor, and it's also humbling to be able to speak with someone that's even though you're only doing it for 2 years, you are reaching a high level of recognition with being on bestseller lists, or being on national TV, standing in front of thousands of people. And here I am starting a podcast in April, and you're taking out the time to have a conversation with me. And I'm grateful for the opportunity for you to come and speak with me, even though maybe I'm not well known yet. It's a pleasure to be able to meet another person that we share a lot of similar philosophy and ideas with, and we have a very similar approach to how we want to contribute to those around us. And I'm always honored and blessed by some of the different people I get to meet in my life and through the podcast. So, from the bottom of my heart, I'm just very grateful and thankful for you taking the opportunity to have a conversation with me today.
Oh, thank you. No, the honor is mine. I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you. And I feel like we could talk all day.
I think we could. That's why I try to tell everyone when we do the podcast, like, well, you're not going to give me scripted questions. Like, no, we're just going to have a conversation, because people need to put their cell phones down and do this more. Learn to have
Yeah.
a conversation. But listen, this doesn't necessarily mean it's our last conversation. I'm sure there's new things that you'll be doing. I'd love to have you back on the show. But even afterwards, if there's anything that we could ever do to collaborate together, to work together on any level, I'd be honored to contribute any of my experiences or anything along those lines to your cause as well. So I'm sure we could speak more after the show.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm going to start a podcast, and I want you to be a guest on my podcast.
I would love it, absolutely, and I look forward to that. And anything I can help with on that, I'm happy to. So,
Thank you.
without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to thank Amberly for coming on the show, and I hope you enjoy our conversation today. Please take a look at all of her links in the show notes. Please go out and get a copy of her book and follow her on social media. It's truly an inspirational story, and I'm very thankful again for having her on the show. So one more time, ladies and gentlemen, today's Life's Black Belt, Amberly Lago. Thanks again, Amberly.
Thank you.